And that was in about, I want to say 1985.
Wow, amazing. Look, it's also come a long way as well too. And of course, you kind of look at the changes. It's like, I guess you can just say, like, in your eyes of radio, how much do you think it's changed from the days of Premier Networks up until today, especially with iHeart Media?
We couldn't do it today.
Uh-huh.
Because everyone's attention is diffused. We're looking everywhere. We're not looking across the dial in our city to see these are my options. We're looking across a computer spectrum, the internet spectrum. What are my options? You could have 3 people listening to one thing that they love, and you could have 2 billion people listening to another thing that they love. But they all take up the same amount of space on your computer screen or on your phone. So there's a ton of real estate. And instead of everybody living in a few homes, people are spread out all over the world. And so launching Premier Radio Network today, it just wouldn't happen. Our timing was perfect. I'm extremely fortunate.
It sounds like it as well, too. And, of course, with, speaking of the internet, podcast, and everything else. And one time you hosted with Laura Swisher called WeezyandtheSwish.com as well, too. A one-time weekly podcast. You can tell us about that.
Right. Well, that was my first podcast, and that was when I went to Craig Kitchen had become the president of Premier. Steve Lehman had moved on, and Craig Kitchen was there, and I had started doing stand-up. So I felt like, okay, now I'm getting my performing chops down. And I went up to Craig Kitchen and I said, what's the likelihood that I could have a show at Premier? He was my partner. So it's like my brother. I'm saying to my brother, like, hey, can I have a show? Or like, Lucy saying to Ricky, hey, can I be in the show? And he's so cute. We have such a funny relationship. He just looked at me and he said, none. And then he said, I have 2 words for you, podcast. Of course, it's one word, but it was such a new term. I had never heard it before. And I came home and I think I looked it up online and was like, oh, whatever this is, I'm going to figure out what it is and do it. And then that night, I swear to you, that very night, I'm out doing stand-up, and my friend Laura Swisher is out doing stand-up. And when you do stand-up, you spend a lot of time waiting around for your turn on stage. It's like highly unglamorous. Like, you just kind of sign up and stand around. And so I was like, what do you know about podcasts? And she's like, oh my God, my friend Matt had been talking about podcasts. And anyway, we decided that I would turn one of the rooms in my home into a studio, and we would begin podcasting. And that was the genesis of Weezy and the Swish. And we did 100 episodes. And interestingly, Laura's had a lot of adventures since then, but she's actually working at a podcast company now called Maximum Fun. So she's stayed pretty close to podcasting, as have I. I'm now on my 4th podcast called Things I Found Online.
That is amazing, and I was just going to get to that. But first of all, you listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking a budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Evan Fine of the Senior Reserve Group. When you start thinking about retirement, who are you going to call about Medicare? Why call the best? Evan Fine of Senior Reserve Group, specializing in Medicare, health, and long-term care insurance. Evan can be reached at 1-800-650-9357. That's 1-800-650-9357. Or email to evanfine@seniorreservegroup.com. Evan is licensed in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Delaware, South Carolina, and Florida. Also, The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can also check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And also, watch the interview on YouTube as well. We're here with fellow podcaster and a jack of all trades in everything, and excellent in writing, producing, directing, being a comedian. I mean, she's making me laugh already. Filmmaker, photographer, songwriter, and drummer. Also co-founder of Premier Networks, Louise Palanker. And we were going to get to the podcast. You're doing things online. But first, you've also done a show called The Road Taken. You can also tell us about that.
Oh, that's my friend Vicki Abelson's show. And I was just kind of helping her out on that. She interviews celebrities and finds their secrets to success.
Wow, that's something, too. It sounds like a road taken. And, of course, the things I found online. And, of course, some of the people think it's like, hey, here's some things I found online. But you've got a unique take on your program. So just tell us all about the Things I Found Online podcast.
Well, I'm kind of an internet junkie. I sort of love technology and what we can individually do with it. And I kind of came to the realization, and not uniquely at all, but everyone sees the internet that they look for. And the internet has gotten really good at showing us the internet that we're looking for. In other words, they target us. And so we only see sort of one internet. If you kind of walk by the computer when your wife is online, you might be like, I never see this, because
oh no,
she's got her interests, and so the internet's going to show that to her. And so I'm really interested in, what we each see when we go online. So that's kind of the focus of the show, is just looking at life through the lens of the internet. And since pretty much everything can be found online, there's no subject that we can't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come on our show, Mike, we'll start by Googling you, and we'll look at all the places where we can find you online, and then we'll start talking about where you like to go online and what interests you, or how you're being targeted, or what your internet habits are. I remember on our very first episode, we started by saying, like, okay, when you wake up in the morning, like, what's your routine? Because everyone has a different routine in terms of when they, when do they first reach for their phone or turn on the television or the computer, and where do they go? Like, what's the first thing you do? And I kind of wanted to joke like that, every morning I wake up, I check my email, and I unsubscribe. Because it seems like if you don't do that daily, your first 30 emails are things that you never really wanted and don't need. It's like that version of, like, when you go to the mailbox in the morning, before you enter the house, you throw into the recycle bin your junk mail. So I think the same principle should apply for email.
That is interesting. I think I'll take that into consideration. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I have a cup of coffee, and I look, it's like, did I really subscribe to that? Or did I really look at this? Or it's like, what was I thinking? Or what did I have to drink last night that made me look at this?
No, and I specifically noticed that when I deliberately do not check, would you like to hear from us about special events? I deliberately do not check that. I'm still on their list. I think they're ignoring what we have requested. And whenever you buy anything anywhere, you're going to start to show up on their list. So you have to unsubscribe immediately, Mike. Do not give them an in.
That sounds like an interesting topic as well to talk about. And what are some of the most common things to talk about? And what's been the most unusual subject you've had on your program?
Wow, I'd have to Google my own show and take a look at all of the topics. I actually think probably the thing that we keep coming back to, because it's endlessly interesting, is, of course, online dating. Because everyone, most movies and most songs are about romance, so the internet is mostly about romance too. And if you're married, as I am, like, you don't see that part of the internet. You don't see the whole dating part of the internet. So that's fascinating to people, whether they're in or out of a relationship. But I think one of the most interesting shows we did was we had a whole panel of Uber drivers, Uber and Lyft drivers. And so, we got to talk to them about what it's like on their side of things. Because, most of us have taken an Uber or a Lyft, and we know what it's like to get into one. But, like, what's it like to be a driver? And they had a lot of really interesting stories.
That is amazing, too. And what are some of the stories you could think of when it comes to Uber drivers? Maybe just give somebody a heads up, or maybe consider taking Uber.
Some of them were, like, really casual about it. Just like, yeah, whenever I'm ready to go to work, I just turn on my phone and look at the app. And then one guy was just like, he really games it. Like, he really waits until, there's going to be, I don't know, like, the rates change because some event, like, he strategizes it. Like, he enjoys figuring out, like, where he needs to be and when he needs to be there. So it was just interesting to hear the different philosophies of, like, why they drive and how they drive and what matters to them. But of course, being here in LA, they all had celebrity stories of picking up somebody, and yeah, it was just a fun show. I can't remember a lot of specifics, but I just liked hearing their insight into it and how people can decide to do something to supplement their income, and there's a way to do it with the way that a lot of industries have been disrupted. So, I can't remember the name of the app where you can they'll deliver things to you, and then Ubers are now delivering food, or there's just so many different ways that if you just want to say oh, we need just a little bit more money, let me turn on TaskRabbit and see if someone needs me to nail anything down for them. I'll go ahead and go do that.
It also encourages competition as well, too. Another one I thought it was it DoorDash or something like that? That's a new one that came up. And plus you got your local stores that do deliveries as well, too. It's not necessarily national, but also the locals as well, too. Like your local mom and pop or your local chain store can also do delivery driving as well. And perhaps that probably encourages competition or just creates tension.
Oh, yeah. In so many different ways. It's if you walk around your town, I'm sure you're going to see storefronts are hurting. What's going to happen? All these storefronts, are they going to turn them into housing? I mean, because most of what you need, your household supplies or just the things that you buy every week, you can buy them on Amazon. You don't have to park and carry things. They're dropped right at your doorfront.
That is something as well, too. And what are some of the more unusual subjects that you've come across in your podcast?
Trying to think. I'll have to Google my show and look at all the topics. That will probably be. Let me just go to SoundCloud really quick, because that's a good place where I know they all are.
Mm-hmm. And of course, a lot of the shows can be heard on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeart Radio, and YouTube as well too. Just like with the Mike Wagner Show, your show, and everybody else. And basically, a lot of them are accessible as well too. That's the best part about the internet. So while you're Googling as well too, you can let me know what you've come up, and of course we'll also talk about some of your documentaries as well too. So feel free to jump in what you've had encountered as well too. And of course, in fact, I have to say this that probably on your show anytime soon, and I don't know if you want to find out what I'm on the internet for. Maybe just my show. I don't know.
Oh, I Googled you before this interview started so I could see your picture and see what you look like. And the first thing I got to was iHeart Radio. And they've got you right up. If you put Mike Wagner, because you have a name that's quite common, so if you put Mike Wagner Show, it comes right up on iHeart Radio. But I found my show, and the show from 2 weeks ago we did. I'm friends with David Letterman's former head writer and Jay Leno's former head writer, and so I had them both on.
Wow.
We kind of talked about those late night wars, with some perspective and frame of reference to look back on it and talk about it more freely, since neither one of them have their talk shows anymore. It was like a really open conversation about everything that went down.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing, too. Of course, you're talking about late shows and everything else. Compare the late shows with the cutthroat and everything else back then. What's a competition like on the late shows? And is there any cutthroat, or is it more support? Or was it type, back in the days of say Jay Leno, Johnny Carson, all that, to like the shows of now with Jimmy Fallon and Conan O'Brien and whoever else jumps in?
Well, there's just more space and more shows. So when Letterman and Leno were both vying for the Tonight Show, it seemed like the only ring to grab, and that's why the competition was so fierce. But then as they were grabbing for the ring, more rings appeared, and that led to Letterman having his own show on CBS, and then that led to Conan and the landscape that you see today, where everyone is so strong. I mean, all the shows are so strong, and you can record them with your DVR. The competition and isn't as fierce. You can look at things the next day online as they get shared. It's like everything is just dispersed and you can find what you're looking for. And it's not like only one man can have this. And it almost feels